Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to F1 23 two-player career mode with Zeke. This is episode number 3 today for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And, just like in real life, Baku has a sprint race. Now, because we haven't had a sprint race yet this season, I think it is time to explain how we are going to do the sprint races, because we do have a fair share of them. So, we will not be showing qualifying, and we will just be heading straight into the sprint race for you guys. As for us, we will be doing qualifying. So, qualifying for the sprint race. The sprint race will determine the starting grid for the full Grand Prix. With that saying, let's head straight into it. Here we go! Alright, so we're about to start the sprint. The formation lap.
Remove the clutch.
Ah, damn it.
It's the freeze. Formation lap.
So, we are here in the Baku sprint, where it is overcast but dry. That is more than what we can say for the full Grand Prix, as
Yeah,
it will
I'm definitely gonna
be.
be able to pass some people.
It will be very wet in the Grand Prix. Zeke starting from the back in the sprint. I myself qualified on pole position for the sprint race. However, we will have some grid penalties to take, which means we will be starting at the back in the full Grand Prix. Zeke coming off of a very poor Australian Grand Prix. Confirmation, no rain set for the sprint race. However, cloudy overhead.
It might come in at the end.
Maybe. 6 laps in the sprint race, 18 laps in the full Grand Prix. Reason we didn't want to show qualifying is because,
It's qualifying.
well, we don't. This video is going to be the longest one so far of the series. I didn't want to have them.
You didn't want to make it even longer.
Yeah. Alright, here we go. Forming the grid. Pointed a little bit to the left to try and cover off Verstappen at the start, as the grid is now fully set. And as the lights come on, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5, and it's lights out, and away we go for the sprint here in Baku. We stay ahead of Verstappen, heading down this short straight into turn 2. Now we'll try and pull away from the Red Bull. Into the breaking point of turn 3. The gap at 0.8 of a second ahead of Verstappen, now 0.9. into the braking zone of turn 5, now a second ahead of the Dutchman. Trying to maximize points in the sprint race just in case we aren't able to score any in the full Grand Prix with the penalties that we will be taking.
I hate this corner.
Pulling further away from the Red Bull driver.
It's Gasly.
Now heading down the main straight. As Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc are having a bit of a scrap over P5. Leclerc on the medium tire. So Charles Leclerc trying a very audacious strategy, considering there will be no dry period throughout the full Grand Prix. So if he's trying to save soft tires, then this is another clownish strategy from Ferrari. Almost like they have Matteo Minato back.
What'd you just say?
Leclerc is on the mediums
Oh.
for a 6-lap race.
Why?
Because it's Ferrari.
Sure.
Second, the gap now at 3 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. Can't quite tell what position the Aston Martin of Zeke Johnson is.
15.
15th. Confirmation. The other Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso up in P4. So we almost lose the car out of turn 1.
Signs.
And it would seem that the Ferrari and Aston Martin has had an issue.
I have horrible speed.
Maybe because you're really low on the powertrain side of things, Zeke. You may have had the best engine in Australia until it went pop. But right now, I believe you're down in peace in 6th place.
I thought I was pretty high in powertrain.
Yeah, well, you're behind me now. And we're all and all 3 of us are behind the Ferrari engines
Oh.
in overall speed.
No wonder why he's faster than me.
Yeah.
Remember how I had that one horrible thing in 2021 when I first came back and my turns were doing horrible?
Mm-hmm.
It's doing that again.
That's what vacation will do to you.
Well, I'm gonna be last, so.
Well,
Uh,
I'll be back there with you.
what did you do?
The penalties.
How many?
A full set. I replaced the
Hey,
whole
I see
frickin' engine.
you. You're gonna lap me.
No, I'm not. Dude. I'm still 3/4 of a circuit behind you.
Oh.
As we hit the barrier, that is going to allow the other drivers to close up as our teammate of Lewis Hamilton now trying to make a move into turn 1 ahead of Verstappen. He is ahead of Max Verstappen. Slow up so he'll have DRS. I believe it was an ill effort though. Tried the wily old Fox game of trying to give DRS to our teammate. I believe, however, it has not worked. However, he has stayed ahead of Verstappen. With only 1.5 laps to go. Now pulling away from our teammate of Lewis Hamilton.
Wait, so are you going to be in last?
Dude, you're slow.
Yeah.
Both on track and in your mind. Yes!
I'm just asking.
I've said it so many times, I'm gonna be at the back. At the start of the race.
Okay.
Last lap. I just want to try and bring it home. We have both Williams up in the points here in this sprint race, looking for what will be 5 points with a P6 and P7 finishing. And then you have an AlphaTauri of, I believe, Yuki Tsunoda up in P8, which is for 1 point to try and help their bid in the Constructors.
What's the next race?
I believe Miami. I think you should be focusing on this race, though, Zeke.
I'm in last.
Yeah, for the sprint. You're acting like it's the full Grand Prix right now.
What am I gonna do in the rain?
Oh, no! And we've spun it. Lost control of the car. And that is us finishing P5 from what could have been a P1. So we now watch on as we watch Zeke finishing his final lap. Upset as we spun the car, and what went from being able to score 8 points now goes down to only scoring 4 points. What an upset. Absolutely upsetting. But now it's time to head to the rain-soaked full Grand Prix. Here we go. As for race strategy, I'm gonna go all the way on these intermediates. Hi.
How are you?
Slightly annoyed.
That's fair.
Sure, not as annoyed as you are, though.
Yeah. Don't bump into me. You are. Oh my god.
What happened?
What?
What happened?
What?
What happened? Science!
I apparently collided with you.
Yeah, well,
Hi.
I collided with Magnuson.
I think that Magnuson is
Okay,
like,
guys, we're just gonna wait, and we're just gonna let you skip, and we're just gonna have to wait until the,
You like my helmet?
I don't see your freaking helmet, stupid.
No.
Let's wait. Let's skip to lights out. Here we go. Okay, the formation lap is complete. Oh, wait. There's a freaking Alpine who hasn't even... Mate.
What? Yes.
There's an Alpine that's just, like, still going around.
Oh.
I don't know which one it is. But they just... I'm pretty sure it's Ocon.
Ocon.
Yeah, it
Ocon.
is.
Ocon.
It is Esteban.
It's Esteban?
Yeah, it's Esteban.
Why is he going so slow?
I think he got spun around or something.
Uh-oh.
Okay, well, it just... Okay, we're just... 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go. It's a poor start for me. As we watch the Aston Martin of Johnson make a 4-car dive bomb, as we're stuck behind Nick DeVries and Guan Yu Zhou.
Sure.
Now getting ahead of the two young drivers. following the Aston Martin's racing line, trying to get ahead of Valtteri Bottas. As we watch Johnson, our rival, get ahead of Pierre Gasly, and he goes into the barrier. You went in too deep. And you just forced me into a collision with Pierre Gasly. Thank you very much for that.
I'm sorry. That's what sides did to me. That exact thing.
If we had stayed there for much longer, that would have been a red flag.
A red?
Yeah. Red flag.
In the rain.
Yeah.
Ugh. I don't want to know what that's like.
Anyways, I'm catching back up to you.
I know.
Quickly.
Because I'm slow. Low.
Set it for wet tires, just in case.
I'm probably gonna do wet tires.
Right now, it's intermediates are still the fastest tire. It's not wet weather yet.
Really?
Yeah. I'm sure by the midway point, though, it will be time for wet weather tires.
I'm sorry, I
Full
didn't mean
wets.
to bump you.
You gotta slow down a lot slower than you do in
Yeah.
the dry
I realize
Zeke.
that.
Especially around Baku.
There we go.
I have such a better corner than you do there.
I'm sorry I'm slowing you down. Ah!
So we see the Aston have a slight issue right in front of us. Now we see the rest of the grid, rest of the field. Zeke, who had a engine failure last race in Australia, could possibly be looking at some decent points. Possibly. So we set the fastest lap of the race.
I had 2 purples. If I did not run into that wall.
Actually, Zeke, because I was behind you, I set a triple purple sector lap. So because I was behind you for the first 2 sectors, I actually beat your sector time. Sorry.
Well, I beat your the 3rd one.
No, because...
Then why did I get a purple?
Maybe you did. Anyway, we get ahead of Oscar Piastri.
I just realized that we're by points.
Down the inside of Nico Hülkenberg. And I am now up into the points. Chasing after Lando Norris, who is in P9 at the moment.
my god.
Down the inside. And we're ahead of Lando Norris. Now chasing after the AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda. The AlphaTauri running very well in these wet conditions. The young AlphaTauri driver. As we head down the inside of the AlphaTauri, however, with better machinery. Big send into turn 2. You usually don't see any overtakes like that. Especially not in the wet weather. And we are up ahead of Yuki Tsunoda into P8. Now chasing after the two Williams, being led by U.S. driver Logan Sargent.
I think it's my durability that's the problem.
You realize durability doesn't put any performance on, right?
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't.
And what's the point of it?
To keep your engine from going pop.
Okay.
Durability is important, especially if you're a top team and you don't want your engine to be going pop like Ferrari.
Like me?
No, like Ferrari. Dude, you have to listen to what I'm saying. Right on the back of...
Why won't you turn, you stupid?
Right on the back of
Aston.
the Williams. Now. Round the
My
outside.
Aston will not turn.
Trying to make the move. We do make the move and we're up into P6. Here in the winding streets of Azerbaijan. Charles Leclerc now overtakes Fernando Alonso. Alonso struggling. As, I believe Fernando Alonso has just blown up.
You're joking.
Fernando Alonso. I'm fairly certain has just blown up. Fernando Alonso is out of the Grand Prix.
Okay, so the gap to the car ahead, 1.6 seconds.
Misery for Aston Martin continues as one of their drivers continues to struggle with the conditions, and their other driver now out of the Grand Prix. 2 DNFs in a row for Aston Martin. In the past 2 races, it was Zeke in Australia, it's Fernando Alonso in Baku. When will it end for Aston Martin? When will the misery end for the men in green?
Starting to reach the point where you're going to start acclimating to those tyres. We think you're alright for now. It might not be long before we switch to the full wet.
Is he saying it's gonna end soon?
No. He's saying it's going to be full wet soon.
Okay.
As we come up on the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, we have the better machinery. As we see now, both Red Bulls pitting for a double stack. Not exactly the best strategy because that will screw over Sergio Perez. Max Verstappen, I believe, has swapped to the wet weather tire. So we are going to pit this lap. We'll see what Lewis Hamilton, our teammate, does ahead of us. And if he doesn't pit, then we will be coming in to switch to the full wet tire.
Right, we've got teams in the pits changing over to full wets. Come in and change the tyres if you need to.
Usually really good at feeling the track on these games, knowing when the full wet period is, whether it's intermediates. And right now, I'm struggling on these intermediates. We got the AI drivers swapping over to the wet tire. I think it is time to make the switch. However, we are gaining on our teammates, so not struggling as much as Lewis Hamilton. But struggling enough to where I'm not comfortable on staying on these intermediates for too long.
Race strategy after that. I've got some options for you, so go check your MFD. Confirmed.
So Lewis double stacking. You know what? I'm gonna risk it. I'm gonna take the risk of the play, and we're gonna pit with our teammate.
No!
And it's a late turn in. Logan Sargent leads the Grand Prix as he stayed out.
Let's go, come on. For a late turn-in, then we had a slower than planned pit stop, I'm afraid.
So now behind.
Pit strategy complete.
So now we are behind Charles Leclerc once again, behind Sergio Perez. Max Verstappen now in front of our teammate, so Max Verstappen in a net P1. We're gonna have to try and overtake these two in front of us again. Perez pitted before we could overtake him. Leclerc was a pretty easy overtake as visibility starting to become a bit of an issue. Down the inside we go on Charles Leclerc. It's contact, and the two of us were stuck. Me and Leclerc stuck. Will this be a red flag? This could be the opportunity that a lot of people needed.
Me?
As a red flag does not come out as Nick DeFries now going side by side. And that's contact into the castle section. And now a pileup is ensuing. As I now believe that our race is now totally and completely finished.
So the rain's easing off a bit, but the track is still going to be wet for a while. Be careful.
As oh, and there goes the engine.
Your engine blew?
Yep, my engine
You
is.
saw that coming, didn't you? When you said when mine did, yours like since we have similar ones, he was like, oh god.
Yep. Just gonna have to pull it into the,
No red flags.
my day is done.
Are you watching me?
Yeah. That's a good-looking helmet, man.
Thank you.
Kinda looks
I
like...
changed it.
Kinda looks like Felipe Massa's. A bit.
Really?
Yeah, it does. A little bit. Anyway, Albano leads the Grand Prix with 11 laps to go. However, Max Verstappen catching the Williams at rapid pace. I'm pretty
No one's near me.
I'm pretty sure the Williams will now peel into the pits as Verstappen now takes over the lead. As Logan Sargent currently running P5.
Has everyone pitted?
Everyone has now pitted, yes, I believe so.
The gap.
Yuki Tsunoda, I believe, does get ahead of the Williams. Yes, he does. So Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri is sandwiched between the two Williams drivers. Both McLarens in the points. Norris ahead of Piastri. But it is Logan Sargent who is best of rest up in P4. As Max Verstappen leads the Grand Prix ahead of my teammate of Lewis Hamilton. Shades of 2021 all over again. Max Verstappen versus Lewis Hamilton. Sergio Perez, 5 seconds back, 5.7 seconds back from Lewis Hamilton in P3, and a further 8.8 seconds back is the Williams of Logan Sargent. As we look now, Lando Norris has spun! Lando Norris has spun it! And now, Zeke coming up to the pile-up around the next corner is the pile-up. Zeke must be careful. He could manage to steal a couple of points as he runs into the back of Zhou Guan Yu. That is not what the man from Scotland needed.
Yeah, thanks for show literally going right in front of me.
Norris keeps the P9, but is now 23 seconds behind his teammate, who is now 22 seconds behind Nico Hülkenberg.
My turning's not doing well.
So you look back at the Aston Martin. And it looks like it might just be going back to the intermediate period, where drivers might want to start thinking about possibly going back to the intermediate tire. Zeke starting to fall back from joke, Guan Yu. This is nothing like his Bahrain. His incredible drive in Bahrain, where he went from having to start dead last on the grid, being spun around by yours truly halfway through the race, and still managing to finish P5. What has happened? How the mighty have fallen. Having yet to score any more points since Bahrain, possibly could try to steal some points today. Highly unlikely, as he hits the barrier in the castle section. Unfortunates for the men in green, as Fernando Alonso, the first man out of the Grand Prix, and now their second driver, struggling with the conditions even more than he was.
My gosh.
Further up the field, the battle between the Williams drivers and the AlphaTauri driver of Yuki Tsunoda, it's still running. Sargent, Tsunoda, Albon, but Albon closing the gap. And they have to be careful because they also have Nico Hulkenberg closing up to them as well. The Haas.
I wish everyone could just pit.
The Haas of Nico Hulkenberg running well in P7 and closing the gap to Albon, who is closing the gap to Yuki Tsunoda, who is losing time to Logan Sargent. Logan Sargent, currently P4, has stayed in P4 ever since his teammate made his pit stop. Albon trying to recover and trying to re-overtake Yuki Tsunoda. Almost less than a second, the gap between Tsunoda and Albon. Currently 1.1 seconds. The gap now, less than a second between Albon and Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda, having been taught by Albon, trying to use those teachings he learned from the Thai driver to try and stay ahead. The Williams, a better car than the AlphaTauri. However, Tsunoda doing well. Here with only a few laps to go, as it looks like it may be drying just enough for some drivers to try and gamble and go on to the intermediates. So we look at the battle for the lead once again. Lewis Hamilton closing the gap to 1.1 seconds, now 1.2 through the final sector down the main straight. The Red Bull having a much better aerodynamic and chassis advantage. However, Hamilton has the better engine. Our teammate trying to maintain,
Fuck!
as it would seem that the Aston Martin team would be finding themselves with even more rough luck, as once again Zeke hits the wall in the castle section.
I hit the castle section and you know it.
Charles Leclerc down the order, as I've actually just now noticed, trying to... He is dead last of the current runners in P18 of only 18 cars racing. Trying to get past the Haas of Kevin Magnussen, who has stayed in P17 really all race long.
I don't think anyone's pitting.
7/10 now, the gap between Tsunoda and Albon. Getting closer and closer. Now 6/10 the gap.
You
Albon.
should see the battle between Sainz and De Vries.
Oh, I have. So we now go down to look at said battle between Sainz and De Vries. De Vries trying to push Sainz. The gap 7/10. De Vries has tried a couple of times to get past the Ferrari. As we look back at the battle for P5, the gap now less than 5/10 of a second. Less than 4/10. Only 3/10 in it. Only 2/10 in it now. Albon, does he make the move into the first corner? No, he doesn't. He holds stationary behind the AlphaTauri, but for how much longer? Because that Williams is right behind the AlphaTauri. A slow corner exit. Now 4/10 the gap. Albon, however, staying up to that AlphaTauri. However, the dirty air starting to affect the Williams.
I wish there was another pile-up, man. Because I need it.
Albon and Sargent on for their biggest haul of points so far this season. So far, Albon has been the better driver on paper. However, Sargent is the one who's showing the way. Only 1.5 seconds separates these three young drivers. So now, can Albon try to make a move down the main straight? So we see now that Charles Leclerc has made a pass on Kevin Magnussen to put the Haas down in P18. Max Verstappen starting to spread his legs, now the gap at 1.8 seconds. Logan Sargent leads Yuki Tsunoda, who leads Alexander Albon. P4, 5, and 6. Nico Hulkenberg lost a lot of time. Now 9.5 seconds back. He was less than 2 seconds back last time we checked on him. He's either had a moment or has just really fallen back.
You talking about me?
No, I'm talking about Nico Hulkenberg.
I mean, I have phone back.
Albon trying his hardest to get up to Tsunoda. He's right up the gearbox of the Japanese driver. However, the dirty air not helping the Thai driver. Either way, a good point stay for Williams, both drivers in the top 6, well in the top 10. A good point stay for AlphaTauri as well, as they're looking for a possible top 5 finish. Tsunoda was 7/10 behind Logan Sargent at the start of lap 6 of lap 15. However, now he's 1.2 seconds behind Logan Sargent. In fact, the Williams of Alexander Albon now less than 3/10 behind the AlphaTauri. Will he send one down the inside? No, he doesn't. He thinks smarter of it. These conditions can sometimes be the deciding point. The great equalizer, as it is called in motorsport. Albon now trying to chase after Tsunoda once again, 3/10 the gap. It is heading into turn 3. Now up to 4/10. The AlphaTauri very good at holding on to the position. As we look back at Zeke Johnson all by himself, 15.5 seconds behind Zhou Guanyu, who is battling Esteban Ocon for P12. The Alfa Romeo hampering the Alpine. So we look now at Lando Norris trying to hold on to P9. He has the other Alfa Romeo of Valtteri Bottas and the other Alpine of Pierre Gasly only 3 seconds back. Nico Hulkenberg also all on his own. We have a couple of drivers who are all on their own. Sergio Perez, Nico Hulkenberg, Zeke Johnson, Carlos Sainz, and Charles Leclerc.
Me, Carlos is catching up though.
Carlos slowly catching up to Zeke Johnson. So possibly, if Carlos can get a move on, there may be a last lap possibility for P14 for the Ferrari driver. Albon needs to get a move on because he only has 2 laps to go if he wants to try and catch and overtake his pupil of Yuki Tsunoda.
Just 3 more laps to go.
Not for most of them. Maybe for
Wow.
you.
Less than 3 laps, but like,
I mean, everyone else, like a lot of people, are already on lap 17, and Max is about to go on to lap 18, which is the last lap.
yeah, I know.
2.1 seconds the gap separates Max
And I'm on lap
Verstappen
17.
and Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen about to go on to the final lap here in Baku. Red Bull has had the advantage over Mercedes ever since 2021 here in Baku. It seems like they're gonna keep that going in 2023. Max Verstappen goes on to the final lap 2.4 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Ten car lengths ahead of his 2021 championship rival. Max Verstappen leads the Baku Grand Prix. His teammate Sergio Perez 7.5 seconds back from Lewis Hamilton in P3. This will be Red Bull's first double podium of the season. It will be the first Red Bull win of the season. As we look back at the battle for P4, because Tsunoda has caught back up to Logan Sargent. If DRS was activated at the end of this race, it would have been a very enticing end to this Grand Prix for P4, for the fight for P4. But at the front, it's as you were for Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. The gap 2.3 seconds, 2.4 seconds now. Verstappen comes through to start the final sector here in Baku. It's been the longest episode so far of the series, the first sprint race. Max Verstappen comes down the main straight, and Max Verstappen, for the first time this season, comes home to win the Grand Prix. Max Verstappen wins the Baku Grand Prix. Sergio Perez finishes P3. And for P4, the U.S. driver for Williams, Logan Sargent, a ready-to-go race at his home Grand Prix, takes P4 here in Baku. His teammate Albon finishes P6. It is Yuki Tsunoda who finishes P5. Nico Hulkenberg finishes P7. And all by his lonesome, Oscar Piastri, if he can hold on, will finish P8 for McLaren to continue to be the better driver. Lando Norris looks like he'll stay ahead. As we look now at the battle for P14, Carlos Sainz has picked up the pace. He was 6 seconds back 2 laps ago. Now less than a second behind. Can he manage to steal P14 away from the Aston Martin? I don't think he can. Zeke Johnson, well, he's had his struggles today, but at least he doesn't finish in dead last. And with a little drift across the line, he finishes P14.
Oh, that was stressful, man. Why didn't you have driver of the day?
I don't know, probably because at one point I was leading. Either way, Max Verstappen is your race winner, and he is now the leader of the Drivers' World Championship. with our engine failure. And Red Bull, I believe, also leads the Constructors' Championship.
Dude, that was stressful.
Take a bow, Max Verstappen. Take a bow, Sergio Perez. The two Red Bull drivers on the podium together once again. Sergio sprays his teammate
Why
a
did
bit.
this say Fernando is in seventh?
Because he scored 6 points in the sprint race. Stupid. And as we check the standings, the top
You're in
three
ninth.
separated by 9 points. Myself and Lewis tied for points at the moment, but it is Max Verstappen who leads the championship, and Red Bull now only 4 points behind ourselves at Mercedes. Williams overtake Ferrari for P4 in the Constructors' Championship. Aston Martin stays in P3. McLaren move up to P6. AlphaTauri moving up to P7, and Alpine still yet to score any points this season.
We're still in third.
Guys, if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that little bell, get notified whenever I post new videos. Go check out Zeke's channel, sub to him. I'll see you in the next one.
God, that was stressful.
I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.